6 people died on Drift 9 that cycle. 5 of them were trying to kill someone. The 6th was filling out a maintenance report when it happened, and if you'd told her 3 hours earlier that she'd end the day being called a war criminal by a pirate captain, she probably would have asked you to move so she could get to the coolant valve behind you. My name is Sorik Venn. I was, logistics chief of Drift 9, a converted ore refinery station that has been slowly rusting in high orbit around the gas giant Velen Prime for longer than most of its residents have been alive. I am writing this account because the insurance tribunal requires a first-hand statement from a surviving station officer, and because every other surviving officer keeps starting their statement with, "It's hard to explain," and then stopping. It is not hard to explain. It is only hard to believe, and those are different problems. I will start with the part that matters, which is that nobody on this station was supposed to be a hero that day, least of all her. T-6 hours, 40 minutes. The Corvain's requested docking clearance at 0640 station time, flying a transponder that claimed it was an independent grain hauler out of the Yesh corridor. I approved it myself. I want that on the record, because I have spent the last 9 days being asked why I approved it, and the honest answer is that I approve about 40 ships a week, and I was eating breakfast at the time. Its manifest said, feed grain and hull sealant. Its actual cargo, we would later learn, was 11 sealed cryo canisters stolen from a colonial gene bank 3 systems over. Pre-collapse human and ithec embryonic stock, the kind of thing that gets a species executed on principle if they're caught moving it without 17 different licenses. The Corvain's wasn't a grain hauler. It was a fence's errand boy, 4 days behind schedule and being hunted by the people it had stolen the canisters from in the first place. Those people arrived 19 minutes after the Corvain finished docking. They called themselves the Ashgulls, and they did not bother with a false transponder. They came in loud on a converted troop cutter, and the first thing they did was put a directional charge on the outer docking ring collar, the physical joint holding half of Drift 9's habitation wheel to the spine of the station. I did not know any of this yet. What I knew, at 0659, was that Deck 7's atmospheric board had gone from a calm green to a blinking amber, and that the station's only environmental technician had already logged into it from a maintenance closet 3 sections away because she always got there before I did. T-6 hours, 21 minutes. Her name was Priya Anand, and if you had asked anyone on Drift 9 to describe her before that day, you would have gotten some version of the quiet one who fixes the air. She had been on the station 6 years. She wore the same gray coveralls with a coffee stain shaped like Velen Prime's third moon on the left knee, and she hummed the same 4-note fragment of some human song over and over while she worked, which used to drive the dock supervisor to distraction until he learned to tune it out. She was not station security. She was not military. She had, as far as I ever learned, never fired a weapon at anything larger than a pest drone, and Drift 9's charter, a very old, very stubborn ithec trade guild charter, bans handheld weapons from every deck except the security ring, on the grounds that a station full of flammable atmosphere and cheap hull plating is not a place you want people settling arguments with sidearms. I mention this because every account of what happened afterward gets exaggerated into something it wasn't. She did not have a gun. At no point in the next 6 hours did Priya Anand hold a weapon. What she had when the Amber Alert lit up her handheld was a full schematic of every pipe, vent, valve, and pressure door on Drift 9 memorized well enough that she didn't need to look at the schematic anymore, and a training background she almost never talked about. 6 years growing up on a pressurized Martian mining habitat where decompression drill was a monthly chore as boring and mandatory as taking out the recycling. She logged the Amber Alert, muttered something in Hindi that her translator rendered simply as of course today, and started walking toward Deck 7. She had no idea a bomb had just gone off 11 decks away. She thought it was a SEAL failure. She was wrong, and the truth was already crawling toward her through the station's bones. T-6 hours, 14 minutes. The charge blew the outer collar joint clean off its mounts. I felt it in my own office, a groan through the deck plating that every spacer learns to fear before they learn much else, because it is the sound a station makes right before it decides whether it is going to keep being a station. Drift 9 did not decompress all at once. That's the mercy of old refinery architecture. It was built in sealed sections precisely because ore processing used to blow those sections up on a semi-regular basis, back before anyone cared about worker safety on a converted mining rig. The blast opened a 2-meter gash in Deck 7's outer hull and triggered automatic bulkhead seals on both sides of it within 4 seconds. That is fast. It is also not fast enough to save everyone standing in Deck 7 at 07:06 station time, and I am not going to pretend it was. 11 people were caught in the breach zone before the bulkheads closed. 4 made it through the emergency hatch. 7 did not. And I will tell you now that 2 of those 7 survived only because Priya Anand was already running toward the alarm instead of away from it, and reached the manual crank on the inner bulkhead 9 seconds before it would have sealed with them, still on the wrong side. She didn't know about the pirates yet. She thought she was fighting a hull failure. She had no idea that the real fight, the one that would decide whether Drift 9 kept its air at all, hadn't even started. T-minus 5 hours. 58 minutes. The Ashgulls boarded through the breach itself, which tells you something about who they were. Most boarding parties use a docking tube. These 4 came through a hole in the hull in hard suits, magnetized boots clanking on exposed structural ribs, and the first thing they did upon reaching pressurized atmosphere was shoot the dock supervisor who'd come running to assess the damage. His name was Ketran Bas. He was Ithak, like me. An old dockhand with 4 working arms and a bad hip who complained constantly about the cold and had 3 days earlier loudly informed me that I owed him money from a card game I don't remember losing. He is one of the 6. I did not learn about Ketran until much later. What I learned in real time, from my office 3 decks up, was that Drift 9's internal comms had gone from a low hum of routine chatter to complete silence in the space of about 90 seconds. Which on a station this old and this cheaply wired usually means one of 2 things: total systems failure, or someone has taken the primary relay room by force. It was the second one. A woman's voice came over every open channel on the station, calm in a way that made my carapace itch. "This is Captain Yeshi Orden of the free vessel Ashgull. We are here for cargo aboard the Corvain's debt, and nothing else. Do not engage station security. Do not attempt to seal the docking ring. You have 11 minutes before we start venting decks at random until someone brings us what we came for." 11 minutes. I looked at the section map on my desk and started counting how many people were still breathing on the wrong side of that clock. T-minus 5 hours, 51 minutes. Priya heard the broadcast standing in the flooded with emergency lighting dark of a maintenance junction on Deck 7, one arm still bleeding from where a loose panel had opened it up during the bulkhead crank, and her first reaction, she told me this herself later when I asked, was not fear. It was irritation. I had 11 decks still reading unstable pressure, she said, and she wanted to add random venting on top of that. Do you know what happens to a station's structural load calculations when someone starts opening airlocks out of spite? It's not dramatic. It's just stupid. It's an idiot playing with a system she doesn't understand. She said this the way another person might describe a coworker who kept jamming the printer. I want you to sit with that, because it matters for everything that comes after. Priya Anand did not spend that day being brave in the way the stories like to tell it. She spent it being furious that someone was mishandling a piece of infrastructure she had personally kept alive for 6 years. She checked her handheld. 11 trapped survivors from the breach were sealed in a connector corridor 2 junctions away from her, their air scrubber cycling on backup power that would last maybe 40 minutes. The Ashgull boarding party held the primary relay room, which also controlled, not by design, but because some long-dead station engineer had wired it that way to save copper 30 years ago, manual override access to 6 of Drift 9's 11 atmospheric zones. Whoever held that room could, if they wanted to, open the void to a third of the station. She started moving before she'd finished the thought. That was the exact moment Drift 9's survival stopped being in the hands of its officers and started being in the hands of one furious maintenance tech. She didn't tell anyone where she was going. T-minus 5 hours, 30 minutes. I want to be honest about my own part in this because the tribunal will want it and because Priya would want it too. She has no patience for people who edit themselves to look better. I tried to negotiate. It's what my training told me to do. Ithek station protocol is built around contracts, leverage, and the assumption that everyone, even a pirate, is ultimately a rational actor who can be brought to a table. I opened a channel to Captain Orden and offered her safe transit for the Corvain's debt cargo in exchange for releasing station control and leaving without further violence. She laughed at me. Not cruelly, genuinely, like I'd said something clumsy at a party. You think I want a bargain, quartermaster? I want the fence who stole those canisters, and he's currently hiding somewhere in your station pretending to be a grain trader. I get him, or I get the canisters back myself, and either way you're going to help me, because I am not leaving until one of those things happens. I had nothing to offer her. Security had 4 officers on shift, none of them combat trained for anything past drunk dock workers, and every weapon on the station was locked behind a charter clause I did not have authority to override alone. I sat in my office with my 4 hands flat on my desk and did the thing every ITHEC administrator is trained never to admit doing. I ran out of options. Then my handheld chimed with an override request. Emergency access to the Deck 4 cargo bay controls. A section nowhere near the breach, nowhere near the relay room, nowhere near anything that should have mattered. It was Priya. I almost denied it out of pure confusion. I did not deny it. I have never been so glad to trust something I didn't understand. T-4 hours, 55 minutes. Here is what she was actually doing, while the rest of us searched for options that didn't exist. I only pieced it together afterward, from logs and her own flat retelling, because at the time none of us, not me, not security, certainly not Captain Orden, had any idea. She was standing in front of a wall schematic, tracing one duct line with a finger, the only person on Drift 9 who'd ever bothered to learn where it actually led. What she told me, over the override request, was 6 words. I need Bay 4 sealed off now. I authorized it without asking why. I had watched her keep this station breathing through 2 prior hull scares and 1 genuinely inexplicable coolant fire, and by then I'd learned that when Priya Anand asked for something in a voice that flat, you gave it to her and asked questions afterward. If there was an afterward. There was not going to be much time to find out. Captain Orden's 11 minutes were already down to 4. T-4 hours, 38 minutes. Orden's deadline came and went, and true to her word, she vented a section. It was a small one, mercifully, an unused storage bay on Deck 9, empty of people, blown open more as a demonstration than an actual atrocity. But the demonstration worked exactly as intended. Every remaining crew member on Drift 9 understood, in the space of 1 violent decompression bang that rattled teeth 2 decks away, that Orden had both the will and the access to do it again somewhere that mattered. She opened the channel again. That was Deck 9. Deck 6 is next, and Deck 6 has people on it. Quartermaster, you have 5 minutes to bring me the fence, or I start collecting a different kind of payment. Deck 6 was residential. 41 souls, most of them off-shift workers and their families, none of them anywhere near hard suits or emergency shelter. I remember standing up from my desk so fast my chair went over, because there was nothing rational left to try. No leverage, no negotiation, nothing but a countdown, and a woman on the other end of it who had already proven she meant what she said. That was when my handheld buzzed again. Not an override request this time. A direct comm line patched in through a maintenance relay that had no business being able to reach my office, and Priya's voice, breathing hard, said 4 words that I will remember for the rest of my life. Don't let her open 6. I can't stop her, I said. She has the relay room. I know, Priya said. Just don't let her open 6. Give me 4 minutes. The channel cut. I had no idea what she meant. I would not understand it until it was already happening. T-4 hours, 21 minutes. Here's what 34 minutes alone in the maintenance corridors had bought her. 1 fact. The relay room's only air intake pulled from the same shared duct that fed Bay 4. Another. Drift 9's old refinery cargo doors were rated to hold back a full atmosphere against hard vacuum. Built for ore-crushing accidents, not pirates. Priya was the only person alive who knew both facts, and the only one reckless enough to notice what they added up to. Hard suits kept the ash gulls safe from vacuum. Nothing kept them safe from a pressure hammer coming the other way. She flooded Bay 4 with fire suppression gas, cold, heavy, completely breathable, until the pressure climbed well past standard. Then, with the shared duct still open behind it. She cracked the outer cargo door 2 centimeters into space. The surge didn't blow outward. It slammed backward, up the duct, straight into the relay room in a single violent howl of wind and freezing fog, throwing 4 armed combat-trained pirates and every unsecured weapon they carried clean across the floor before any of them understood what had hit them. She hadn't killed anyone. She'd rerouted that gas mixture 3 times on her handheld just to be sure of it. She'd simply turned a locked room full of guns into the inside of a slammed door. 4 seconds. That's all it took. T-minus 4 hours, 16 minutes. I did not see any of this happen. I only know what came next, which was that the channel Captain Orden had been using to threaten Deck 6 went dead mid-sentence, replaced a moment later by static, and then by 4 security officers I had sent scrambling toward the relay room the instant I got Priya's warning, reporting back that the room's occupants were disoriented, coughing, and, remarkably, given what I would learn later, completely unarmed because their weapons had been ripped out of unsecured holsters and scattered across the floor by the same blast that had put them down. It was not a clean fight. One of my officers, a young Ithek named Dessa Kaur, who'd been on this station less than a year, took a knife wound from a pirate who recovered his footing faster than expected. She survived. 2 Ashgull crew members did not, cut down by security in the chaos of that room. I do not know, to this day, whether that was necessary. I am not going to pretend to the tribunal that I have that answer, because I don't. Captain Orden had no idea any of it had happened. She wasn't in the relay room. She was 3 corridors away, in the Corvain's Debt's cargo hold, personally tearing the ship apart, looking for the fence and the stolen canisters. She did not learn her boarding party had been neutralized until Priya Anand, still bleeding, still in the same coffee-stained coveralls, having jogged the length of 2 decks to get there, stepped into the open cargo hold doorway and said, in the flattest voice I have ever heard a recording capture, "He's not on this ship. He left through the maintenance shaft under Bay 2 40 minutes ago. I watched him do it on the camera feed. You've been searching an empty hold for half an hour. T-minus 4 hours, 9 minutes. I've listened to the recording of what happened next more times than is probably healthy, because it is the part of this story people always want to hear about, and it is also the part that most disappoints them." Captain Orden turned around slowly. She was, by every account, exactly what you'd picture. Hard-worn, armed, backlit by cargo bay floodlights in a way that would have looked cinematic if any of it had been staged. She looked at Priya, unarmed, injured, alone, human, and said, "You're the one who hit my crew. I'm the one who kept your crew from dying and my station from losing 1/3 of its air," Priya said. "There's a difference, and I'd like you to notice it, because I am extremely tired and my arm hurts and I would like this to be over. You could have killed them." "I could have," Priya agreed. "I didn't. That gas is breathable at every pressure I ran it through. I checked 3 times because I do not enjoy killing people, Captain, even people currently trying to open my station to vacuum. Your crew is going to have a very bad headache and a story to tell. That's the whole cost. You're welcome. I want you to understand that this is not the part where Priya Anand suddenly reveals some hidden military training, some dark past, some secret. There isn't one. I checked her file after the fact, out of the same disbelief everyone else feels reading this. She grew up on a mining colony. She went to a technical institute. She has spent 6 years fixing pipes on an old station most people forget exists. The only thing unusual about her, in the end, was that she had spent her whole life training, through drills so boring she used to complain about them to her mother, for exactly the kind of disaster that just happened. And when it finally arrived, she did not freeze, and she did not need a weapon, because she understood the room better than the person trying to take it from her." Captain Orden stared at her for a long moment. Then, according to the recording, she started laughing. Not the mocking laugh from earlier, something rawer, more exhausted. 11 minutes, Orden said. "I gave your whole station 11 minutes to fall apart, and instead one technician in a maintenance jumpsuit took my crew off the board without firing a shot. I don't even know what to call that." "I call it Tuesday," Priya said. "Now please put down whatever you're holding, because Ketran Boss is dead, 2 of your people are dead, and I would genuinely rather we not add to that number over a fence who already left." T-minus 3 hours, 40 minutes. Orden surrendered. Not out of fear. She was not broken, whatever the cheaper accounts will tell you. She was, by her own statement, simply out of reasons. The fence was gone. Her boarding party was captured. Her ship's hull was damaged and going nowhere. She put her weapon down because the fight was already lost on every level that mattered to her, and she wasn't interested in dying to prove otherwise. Station security took her into custody without further incident. It took another 3 hours to fully repressurize the breach zone, confirm every trapped survivor was accounted for, and get Drift 9's structural integrity back to something the tribunal would later certify as acceptable. Ketrin Boss's body was recovered from Deck 7 at 11:40 station time. 4 other station personnel, 2 dockhands, a security trainee, and an off-shift cook who had been caught in the storage bay. Orden vented as a demonstration. Were confirmed among the dead by the end of that cycle. I knew 3 of them personally. I am not going to pretend their deaths were made acceptable by the fact that more people didn't die, because that math does not work the way people want it to work, and Priya would be the first to tell you so. I found her afterward in the same maintenance junction where this whole account started, sitting on an overturned equipment crate, one arm freshly bandaged, filling out, I am not exaggerating this, a maintenance incident report on her handheld, because Drift 9's charter requires one for any unauthorized system reroute, and she had, after all, technically vented a fire suppression reserve without proper sign-off. You're filing paperwork, I said. Somebody has to, she said without looking up. Bay 4's fire suppression levels are down to 60%. If there's an actual fire before the resupply ship gets here, that's a real problem, and nobody's going to remember to flag it if I don't write it down now. I stood there for a long moment, trying to find something to say that matched the size of what had happened, and every sentence I reached for came out sounding like the tribunal statements I'd spent all day dreading having to write myself. In the end, all I managed was, "You saved this station." She finally looked up. She looked more than anything tired, not proud, not shaken, just tired, in the specific way of someone who has been doing hard, unglamorous work for 6 years straight and has just had one very long, very bad shift on top of it. "I kept the air breathable and the doors working," she said. "That's the job. It was always the job. I just usually don't have to do it around people shooting at me." She looked back down at her handheld. "Also, somebody's going to need to replace Bay 4's outer door seal. I really did a number on that hinge." Afterward, for the tribunal, I am told this account needs a formal conclusion, so here it is. Priya Anand has been offered by 3 separate parties in the 9 days since positions that would take her off this station. Station security training postings on 2 different worlds, and one deeply strange offer from a private salvage guild that I am fairly sure was actually trying to recruit her as a saboteur. She turned all 3 down. She is, as of this writing, still Drift 9's environmental technician. Bay 4's outer door hinge has in fact been replaced. She replaced it herself. I am told humans have a saying about people like her. Though when I asked her about it, she just shrugged and said most of the sayings she'd heard weren't about maintenance techs. They were about soldiers, and she didn't much care for the comparison. "Soldiers train to fight," she told me. "I trained to keep a room from killing everyone in it. Different job. People just don't usually notice the difference until the day it matters." I have thought about that sentence more than almost anything else that happened during the incident, and I have decided it belongs at the end of this report because it is the truest thing anyone said to me that whole cycle, and because I suspect it will outlast every other line in this file. 6 people died on Drift 9 that cycle. Every survivor is alive today because the 7th person the Ashgulls should have been afraid of was a woman with a coffee-stained knee, a bandaged arm, and absolutely no interest in being called a hero for doing her job. Statement submitted by Sorik Ven, Logistics Chief, Drift 9.